On this week's podcast, I'm talking with Karen Caig about a question that we get a lot, which is Reiki guidance. And we're going to talk about both aspects of it, both working with a Reiki guide and how to find out who your guide is and that sort of thing, or how to choose a guide, and also what Reiki guidance looks like and feels, and so on. Welcome, Karen. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me again. I love being here.
I love having you here. So you'll be back. Before we get too far in, I'd just like to let everybody know about some classes I've got coming up a little later on this month in February. I'm going to be heading to Australia, and just outside of Canberra and Royalla at my friend's beautiful, we are going to be having the RMA classes, which means those are the classes that you need to become a professional member of the Reiki Membership Association, the ICRT Reiki Membership Association. I do also want to announce that we do, through the Reiki Membership Association, we do now have Reiki membership insurance in Australia. So for those Australians listening, and we also do have it in Canada and the United Kingdom as well now, as well as the European Union. So I know that for some of you folks who are part of the Australian Reiki Association, you need your classes in person, but you would really like to have your Holy Fire Reiki and be a part of the ICRT. So I am going to be offering in-person classes there, and I'll also be able to offer them online. And I'm also going to be offering an Animal Reiki level 1 and 2, ICRT Animal Reiki level 1 and 2 while I'm there. So I do hope you can join us for those. I'll be back in April offering classes here on the farm as well as online, full lineup, including animal communication. And in May, I'll be at the Northeast Reiki Retreat in New York. It's not sold out yet. And my Animal Reiki level 1 and 2 class isn't sold out. So if you'd like to have Animal Reiki class from one of the course authors, I'd love to have you join us. Karen, what have you got coming up?
I've got the end of February. I've got, what do I have? I have Animal, and I had a really good teacher, Pam. So I have Animal Reiki Master coming up and regular Master, Animal 1 and 2, all at the end of February. And March, I have all 4 classes that I offer besides Karuna. I have 1 and 2, Master, Animal 1 and 2, and Master. And then April, I'm hoping to move to Ecuador, so I'm going to be lightening it up there.
That's this
another
April?
exciting, yeah, this coming April. That's what my guides keep telling me. They keep telling me April, and I'm like, okay, but I have a lease through July, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. But that's what we're talking about today. I'm learning to trust that guidance. So I'm planning for April because that's what I keep hearing. And then in June, I am co-leading a retreat in Wisconsin with my friend Kathy Milanowski. And the dates for that, you can find all of that information on reiki-institute.com. And you can sign up for that wellness retreat. It's not a Reiki retreat, but it's a wellness retreat. So we will have tables set up to do Reiki if you want, but we're going to be focusing on like sound healing. And it's a heal the healer retreat. We forget to take care of ourselves sometimes. So that's June the 8th through the 11th. And you can register for that at wisconsinreiki.com.
I love it. And we will have links in the podcast notes to your website as well, for people to find you. So, well, guys, let's just close our eyes and bring our hands into Gasho for a moment and just activate our Reiki energy. Just feeling that connection with the heavens and with the earth. Just imagine sinking your roots down into the earth so deeply that you meet with the groundwater in the water table, and then go a little further to the bedrock. And just feeling the stability of that. So many people think Reiki guidance is in the ether, but in fact, it's very practical and realistic, and it's all around us. And just activating your Reiki symbols and just allowing your chakras to align so that you can listen with your chakras And with all of the disparate parts of yourself in alignment, your head with your heart, your intellect and intuition. We are blessed to be of a lineage of light bringers today who are creating wellness on the earth, and we invite the energy to please guide me and heal me so that I may be of greater help to myself and to others. Aho and namaste. I don't know about you, but that just always settles me into the energy. Just even the instant that my hands come together in gasho, the energy starts flowing and everything feels more manageable and I don't know, nicer in some way, Karen.
I'm glad that you rooted us in the earth, because we do forget that a lot of the guidance comes from this plane.
It's all around us.
All around us, everywhere.
There's one thing that I teach in my animal communication class, and that is that oftentimes when animals come across our path, and not an animal you see every day necessarily, but an animal that's normally don't see a dog there and there's a dog there, or, oh, look, there's a deer, or there's a pheasant or a hawk or something, fox just crossed my path. And there's messages behind that. I encourage people to look at Stephen Farmer's book on animal spirit guides and even the pocket guide to spirit animals. I actually keep it on my phone on Kindle so that I can look up the meaning of these animal sightings even when I travel, because they're always significant. And Stephen Farmer has categorized, if this animal shows up, it might mean one of these 6 things. And I know you have a special animal spirit guide that kind of lets you know when you're on the right track.
Different. So is it Stephen, Steven? Because actually I don't have
Stephen, Dr. Stephen.
Okay, I've used Ted Andrews.
And Ted Andrews has a wonderful book.
But I have, so I'm going to check out the Stephen Farmer. Okay.
Stephen Farmer's. What I like about Stephen's, I love Ted Andrews' book as well, and it has more birds. So I do pull his book out as well. And I'm trying to think of what it's called. Animal Speak. What is
Animal Speak? Yeah.
Animal Speak.
It's over there on my shelf.
It's on my shelf too, but I don't have it right in front of me. So I was going from memory. And but Stephen Farmer, he actually used to be married to Doreen Virtue at one time, and he really very succinctly breaks down, if this animal shows up, it might mean this and that sort of thing. And I do notice that as I'm doing Reiki sessions here in my beautiful Reiki room, which is surrounded by windows, there are 2 very special trees, a little butternut tree that I planted and a beautiful yellow birch that's been there forever. And specific birds will land on the trees to give a specific message to certain clients. Sometimes it'll be a flock of starlings comes, and if I'm not paying attention, they'll come and knock into the window so that I pay attention to what birds are there. Sometimes it'll be chickadees, blue jays. Very rarely, because we don't have cardinals here, but twice during Reiki sessions, I saw cardinals. There's one student in particular that 5 or 6 eagles fly by every time. And eagles don't usually hang out like that.
No.
Very unusual. But with that particular client, she'll lay down on the Reiki table and there will be 5 or 6 eagles going by. And so
a crow just came whoop right by my window. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. So we would then look up the meaning of crow, and that's just a wonderful way to get guidance from the earth. And you have a mantis that shows up.
I do. And that has always been really connected to spiders. When I see a spider, I know I'm supposed to be, of course I can see spiders over, but if it's like something was, oh, okay, or really unusual, I know I'm supposed to be writing. That's my message, that I'm supposed to be writing, because in the Native American traditions, I looked this up, they thought, oh, it's writing messages. And of course, if you read Charlotte's Web in 2nd grade, the way I did, like some pig, remember Charlotte wrote in the web, but it's a message to me specific. You're supposed to be writing. You need to be writing, doing something grandmother spider, like weaving, creating something. And when I see a mantis, then that has only been the last couple of years. And we have praying mantises in Arkansas, but it's unusual. So the last guidance I just got, it's a special totem for me. And I looked it up, like, what it's a long story, but when they showed up in my life, I was like, this is weird. What is a praying mantis? And they're odd looking little things.
Yeah.
And they teach, you know what they teach? They teach patience because they can sit still for a long time, which I can't, but they teach patience. And then when it's time, boom, they're fast.
Right. I love it.
This whole decision to move to Ecuador has been insane. I asked specifically, I was feeling guided that I needed, Ecuador kept popping up on my radar, and people said, why are you moving to Ecuador? And I don't want to say, because the mantises showed up. That sounds insane, right? I have been looking at moving to Ecuador. I started researching it 30 years ago, but then
Wow.
it started coming up on the radar. So this is how guidance works. It started popping up, all these little, it just random. So there's the first step about following guidance is that there is no such thing as an accident. You just have to pay attention.
There are no
And
coincidences.
I started seeing things about Ecuador. Ecuador pops up everywhere. So I asked specifically if I am supposed to sell everything and move to another country, then I'm going to need some clear guidance. You're going to send me a mantis. Send me a mantis. Let me see a mantis. Because I hadn't seen one in a year. And that was right before we went to the Reiki retreat. So we went to Prescott, and there was a mantis above the bathtub on the window outside. And so I called Kathy. I was like, Kathy, look, there's a mantis. She's, oh, good, yay. And then we were waiting and greeting people in Sedona at the Mago retreat, and in that little area before you go into the desk. And we were just waiting for the next group of people to arrive. And I look up and there's a mantis. Hey, so I get her down, talk to her, like, it's hot in here. You need to go outside. So I put her outside. 2 days later, Jill Till and I are working on our presentation. And the man from the desk is on the floor. I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, there's a praying mantis in here on the floor. I said, oh, it's mine. I said, great. I put her outside. And then when I got home, I know this sounds crazy. I do live in Arkansas in the Ozark Mountains, but it's not like total wildlife everywhere. I get home at 1:30 in the morning, and my neighbor who was taking care of my cats, instead of turning my lamps off at the wall switch, she had turned them off. So I had to do that. And I went, it's 1:30 in the morning. I had just driven from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was tired, and it's caught my eye. I look up and there's a mantis on the ceiling. I'm like, really? So then I'm climbing up and getting it down. And then 2 more times within 3 days, there was a mantis in my bedroom. And
yeah,
it needs to be to the point where you're like, this isn't, in fact, there's a video of it on Facebook, and I'm going like, this is insane. I'm like, okay, I get it. And as soon as I announced I'm moving to Ecuador, then I stopped seeing them. So I'm like, okay, I got it.
It's really interesting. I find that too. Like people are always asking us, Karen, you talk about Reiki guidance, but what does that mean? And how does it sound or look to you? And I really think it's different than what people think. Like, it's not very often is it like a conversation with God. Occasionally that happens, but that's not usually. Mostly my guidance comes in a lot like yours. Like, maybe I'll ask a question as I'm doing Reiki or in a prayer. And William Rand actually described this when he was asked the question at a class that I was assisting him with recently, what does your guidance look like? And he said, usually I'll ask the question and then I'll let go of any attachment to the outcome, whatever. And he said, usually the answer shows up later on, when I'm not even thinking about it and I'm doing something else. So it's not so much of that back and forth. And that's a lot of times what happens for me. Although if I'm on a walk in nature and my mind is really quiet, it is a little more instant. It's a little more, hey, God. And I converse with God, and what is this about, or what's that about? And I do find in those really quiet, more meditative, natural moments, I can, as I'm walking, I can get a little bit of an idea, but it's not a conversation. It's more, I get more of a knowing, or it even maybe sounds like my own thoughts, but I've learned to discern that it's not my thought, that it's actually coming from somewhere else.
People should pay attention to everybody has clair senses. Some people, when you said that, I can tell it's not me because I'll get like a chill or a clairsentience. I feel it in my body. Oh, I feel that. Yeah, that's it. That's the way to go. That's it. Or some people hear.
Yeah.
Some people are more clairvoyant. Some people just know.
Yeah.
That's biblical, isn't it? Be still and know that I am God. If you get quiet, like you're saying, like if you're a walk in nature, something that'll quiet that that you talking in your head.
Right.
Oh, your friends, you should do this. You better be careful of that. You got to get away from all that. And then the guidance is there. It's mainly about you. Here's just where Reiki helps. It helps you get clear and in alignment so that you can discern.
There's a divine element to the guidance from Reiki as well that I find is never harmful. And I've seen people throughout my life say, I'm going to do this crazy thing. And I don't know that it's always coming from a place of divine guidance. Sometimes some of the things that people do are not from divine guidance, and so they're not in their best interest. But when you bring Reiki into the mix, there's that divine element to the energy that you can tap into. And so you get to tap into divine guidance. And what I think the difference is that at any given point in time, heading in a certain direction may look appealing or may look like the place you should go or the thing that you should do. And yet there's what I've always noticed is divine guidance comes from a little higher up, so it can see the whole picture instead of just the small segment that you're in at that moment. And so divine guidance can help you almost play the long game, do what's going to be best for you in the long run, as opposed to what would be expedient or best for you right now. Do you know what I mean? And
yes, and
divine aspect of it, it can't cause harm. So even something like going to Ecuador, that's probably not going to show up for somebody who's just taken a Reiki level 1 and 2 class. Like, I think that the guidance we build on learning to follow.
Yes. I think I mentioned before we started that when I first took Reiki 1 and 2, in Reiki 2, where we talk about use the distance symbol to connect with a spirit guide. And I was like, what are you talking about? Seriously. I'm like, I didn't grow up in church. I was taught to pray the Lord's Prayer, and that was all. That you weren't supposed to ask him, Jesus, we just ask that you help our football team win tonight. We were not supposed to ask for things like that. I'm sorry, I grew up in Texas. That's what we pray. Just let us go to state championship. And so I was taught that you're supposed to give thanks, just pray the Lord's Prayer. And then, but as far as like connecting with a spirit guide or an angel or anything like that, or connecting with, I thought, I don't need Reiki to ask Jesus for anything. And I didn't understand until much later. I thought, oh, okay. It's not like I'm using the distance symbol, like, Jesus, you there? It's not like I'm using it like that to connect, but that I am using Reiki to clear myself and raise my vibration. I feel like I'm using it to bring myself up a little bit. And then I don't have to worry about, is this really good guidance? Is this like a second heaven entity trying to manipulate me? I don't have to worry about all that because I have Reiki'd myself and I have raised my vibration up here, which kind of helps then from, I would say, like higher spiritual beings that are maybe trying to help. And you have to ask. That's the other thing.
You do have to ask for help.
You have to ask because they
will never go against your free will. So you do have to be open to receiving the guidance.
Yeah. And then, but you're like, okay, I'm clear and I'm up here. What you got? It's that kind of I'm listening. Yeah. I'm listening. What have you got? And then that helps with that connection a little better. So that's what I think they meant. And I wrote a whole blog about having to ask. I don't know if anybody else struggles with this, but I'm extremely independent. And they say extreme independence is a trauma response. Yeah. And I'm not asking for help because nobody's going to help me. And then I'll just have my feelings hurt. I was just coming from that point of view. And I was like, I don't need any help. I can do this by myself. About the age 50. Like, how's that working out for you? Not so great. Asking, it's so much easier now. You put yourself but that's all from Reiki. Put yourself into alignment. Ask for the guidance, then listen and watch and then you will know. You really will know, but you have to ask for the guidance, for the help.
That's right. And so that's where that prayer that in the invocation, please guide me and heal me so that I might be of greater service to myself and others. That's a prayer that William Rand uses every day. And so then I thought, well, that's a good idea. I started using it every day. A lot of my students use it every day. You use it every day.
And it's easy. It's not guide me. It's just heal me and guide me so that I may be of greater service. It's simple. And it's just that simple.
When you talk about asking, and I know I heard Colleen Benelli explain it once in a way that made so much sense to me. And she said, anybody can ask. We've been taught to ask. We've been taught to pray. We've been taught to ask. What we've never necessarily been taught is how to receive. And Reiki gives us not only an avenue to go ahead and ask the question, but it also gives us a way to receive the answer, to receive the energy, to manifest the response, and so on. So Reiki does give us that opportunity to both ask the question and receive the response, whatever that might be. And I think that's why so many people with Reiki notice these wonderful coincidences happening in their lives. And Karen, I remember reading one of my earlier spiritual books was The Celestine Prophecy.
Oh, I love that.
Love that book. And I read that in my 20s. And I remember one of the underlying themes is that there are no coincidences. Like everything that happens in your life happens for a purpose. And you said, like, you kept seeing Ecuador. That's what will happen to me every time I turn around, like just something simple. Every time I turned around back in January of 2019, I kept seeing Marie Kondo. And I thought, wait, my home is pretty nice. I don't really need that. And then I thought, but I kept seeing it. So I said, okay, I'll watch her shows. So I watched her shows and was like, maybe I do need that. And then I read her book. And then I came home, and for 6 months, I just gutted my house. That's a simple one. But also with the licensed teacher program, I say that I get a nudge. And
yeah, you say that a lot.
I say that
Reiki nudge.
Nudge. And I think I call it a nudge because you mentioned the different clairs, and I talk about this with my animal communication course, because actually, if you do really want to open up your pathway to guidance, that's what we do in the animal communication course, is we activate the intuition in a most pronounced way, and then we help you understand it, and then we give you a tool to help you develop the discernment to understand what you're receiving. And so we talk about the clairs, that some people are clairvoyant, meaning that they see. And so people like that might have vivid dreams about something, or they might, in their meditation, they might maybe see a movie or a picture or something unfold, or they may even just see colors, but that might have a meaning. And then we have people who are clairvoyant or clairaudient, sorry. And I sometimes think that's one of the more difficult ones to develop, only because our society believes that if you hear voices, you're crazy.
You're crazy.
And
I don't share that with everybody. Of course, now this is on a podcast, but yeah.
No, it's predominant. And I wished I'd marked down the study, but there was a study that was done at a really nicely designed study. I thought they had 256 people that they pre-screened that they had no mental illness, and then they sent them to different places, and like psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, hospitals, psychiatric units, all that. And they said, we want you to go in and we want you to answer every question honestly, except say you hear voices. Just somewhere in there, like in the course of that, just mention that you hear voices. And I think over 90% of them were diagnosed with at least one mental illness, and they'd already been pre-screened as having had none. And was over 50% of them were diagnosed with more than one mental illness or mental condition. And so that's just really predominant in our society. So
no wonder nobody wants to listen to their guidance.
Well,
I mean, if you've got culturally telling you that you're nuts, if you're hearing guidance,
if you can hear voices or hear that's right. So that's really played into, I think, when we if you look at our culture when it was more primitive, when we had to hunt, you had to follow guidance. That's how you hunted.
Right.
You looked for guidance from everywhere and trackers and things like that. And one of the things in the animal communication class is we have to open that up again. We have to unlearn some things in order to open the pathway again. But clairaudience can be tricky. And so a lot of people who have clairaudience, but who, even if you're comfortable with hearing your guidance, if that exists within your cultural conditioning, there might be some discomfort there. Yeah. And so a lot of people will have tinnitus or ringing in their ears. And that's because they're not tuned into the frequency where they can actually hear the guidance. And those are people that are clairaudient. And we also have clear thinking, and that can be a little difficult to tell. We call that clear intellect. Is that my thought or is that somebody else's thought? There's clear imagination, which creatives have. Your intuition or the energy can work with you through your imagination. And these are the writers and the people who create songs and music and art of any kind. A lot of these folks have clear imagination, and they're the way showers, I think, of the world, because they can see what's not already there. They can imagine what's not already there. We have clairsalience, clear tasting, clear tangency, clear touching, clear empathy, feeling, being able to feel. What are some of the others that clear cognizance, which is just knowing, and you don't know how. And there's also clear sentience, meaning not just I feel the emotions of others, but like if you're ill, I can feel your illness in my body. And that I used to have that. And I actually asked for that to change because that was uncomfortable.
It's hard to be a Reiki practitioner and feel everybody's pain.
It really is.
It's not.
And when I did ask for that to change, what it did was it opened up clairvoyance instead, which wasn't open for me. And what I noticed, Karen, and I'm just going to ask you to jump in and say what you have noticed. What I noticed is that when I started my Reiki journey, my clairs or my intuition was there, but it was really in its infancy. And it's really developed over time. And as it's developed more, like I started off with claircognizance, which is clear knowing, and I didn't trust it. So I didn't have very much there. And clear empathy, clear just feeling, emotions, clear emotions. And so I didn't really know how to trust it. And then I also had the clairsentience, where I could feel in my body what was happening with somebody else. And when I asked that to change, it changed out for clairvoyance, which was a picture. And with that, then I could do animal communication, but it has gradually opened. And now you gain access to more and more of your intuition, the more that Reiki that you do. What have you found?
You do. And then, so if people are listening and they're just starting their Reiki journey, know that what Reiki is doing is it's helping you clear off those layers of stuff that you need to heal and let go of, and with the Holy Fire lineage, we talk about return to your authentic self. We know, like Pam said, like primitive peoples, we know a lot. We survived, and it comes back if you're ever walking by yourself in a bad neighborhood. Oh yeah, all those senses come back. You're picking up stuff about that guy on the corner. You don't know how you know that, but you just I don't know, but I'm just feeling like all of that comes alive when you are in danger. It's all there. Of course, you don't want to live in a hyper aware state like that all the time, but Reiki will clear off all the stuff so that you can return to a state of groundedness. And again, Pam, that's so important, that you take us down and ground yourself in the earth. You're here between heaven and earth. We really are these channels between like an electromagnetic channel here. And sometimes I get guidance by just opening, and I'll ask a question and I'll just write. What comes through.
I journal 3 pages every morning from Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. And I'll at the end of my 3 pages, I'm like, oh, now I see what my priorities are for the day. Now I see where I need to go with this question.
And it's not magic. It's all about Reiki helps with all of these, helps with guidance. And this is what I guess maybe in Reiki too, I wasn't ready to comprehend all this yet. Ask Reiki to help. When William says, ask Reiki, I used to think, well, it's easier just to ask you. What's the answer? But what he meant was we all have that connection to guidance to divine light, to Reiki. We have the same connection that William Rand does, and we just need to connect. And that's why he redirects us there.
Yeah.
And I tell my students that too. You're when you first start, you're still wounded. You're still trying to heal. And I'm still trying to heal. You distrust, like, if you've lived even 25 years, you must have made enough mistakes to go, I don't know if I know what I'm doing here. Apparently, I'm not trusting my own guide. And then it's just hard to trust.
Yeah, it is.
But it returns you to that state of, okay, no, I can plug into this. I have access to divine guidance. It's right there. Sometimes I feel like my guides are probably just doing.
I have to tell you, Karen, that once I started seeing some of the things that I would say and do early on in my journey, still are, but I don't have the same guy, but I used to work a lot with Archangel Michael, and I would see him go like this, put his head on his forehead and shake his head and just go, oh my goodness. I remember once telling him, thank you so much for, and then that we should talk about guides, because that opens things up. But I remember when he was my guide, one day we did a really heavy duty healing for a good friend of mine. And afterwards, I said, he was still, Archangel Michael was still there. And I said, thank you so much for taking time off from your job to come and do that really heavy healing for us. And it was so funny. Archangel Michael, I could clearly, when I work with guides, it opens up a little more for me. And I could hear him say, what do you think I do? And well, I don't know, you're the right hand of God or something. And you go around and and I just had this vision of him like fighting dense energies. And then I realized, oh, wait, we were just lifting dense energies from my friend. And I went, oh, this is what you do. Your job. Once again, his hand was on his forehead and his head was down, and he was trying not to laugh at me. And it's so funny. And on a few occasions, he did mention that he really liked working with us, and just the laughter and the innocence.
Have a sense of humor, I think. And
yeah,
like I said, I did not grow up in church. I didn't know. I think I'd heard of like Gabriel, like he's in the Bible, right? Gabriel,
yes,
Archangel Gabriel, I think I'd heard of, but my experience with, if I have time to tell it.
Yeah.
So I didn't disbelieve in angels, or no, I don't know. I just didn't really think about them that much. But there was, and I'll just tell it really fast. So one night after my son had gone to college, I was really lonely and I was sad and pathetic. And apparently I'm overly dramatic, even when I'm completely by myself. I don't know if I'm just acting out for my cats or what, but I was crying. I was sitting on my sofa and I was throwing my hands up in the air because my mother's dead, my dad's dead, my grandparents are dead. And they can be guides. We would call this like second ancestral guides or second heaven energy guides. But I was just throwing my hands up in there. Is there anybody there? Is there anybody there? So I'm asking, but I didn't think about this. And I felt this like warm, it was like a very warm hand took this hand that I had thrown up in the air. And I just felt this, and I just stopped crying because I thought, what the hell is that? And I said, who are you? And I heard Uriel. I'm clear. So I heard Uriel. And I was thinking like Ariel, like the Little Mermaid. What are you talking about? So I had to Google it. And I was like, oh my God, it's an archangel. I feel you there. I just got a big chill. So I thought, isn't that weird? And then 2 weeks later, I had someone invited me to Fayetteville, Arkansas, to a psychic reading. And this woman just had everybody sit in a circle. And then she'd bring us one by one to the center of the circle, and she would put oil on our feet and hold our feet and give a psychic reading. And she was really good. I don't remember what she said, but when I stood up and said, thank you, and went to go back to my seat, she said, by the way, she said, do you know that Archangel Uriel is your guardian angel for this life, and he has been with you from the beginning? And I was like, yeah, actually, I do know that. Thank you. And that was my awareness. And that sounds crazy, and I don't really talk about it except with Reiki people, because I didn't grow up with that. And I didn't understand that I needed to be in a state of, I need help. Is there anybody there? Is there anybody there? And it's like, yeah, I'm right here. I'm like, what the hell are you? And I still don't completely understand it. I think, like when you're talking about Archangel Michael, I think of them because I've asked what, how, because I want to understand it in my mind. And he's, you can't really, but they're more like fractal, like they're everywhere at once.
Yeah,
It's like,
they're omnipresent.
yeah.
And yeah.
And
Well,
guidance.
just the reason I wanted to talk for a minute about guides and reason for them. And I didn't really, yes, I did grow up with a guide in the sense that since I was a child, I could talk to God and get a sense of the response very much. And that never went away, even though I think that I knew that it would be discouraged in my church if I had mentioned it. So I just didn't mention it because I wasn't willing to give up that connection. But Karen, I have a funny story too, because one of the things that you often hear Reiki people talk about is my guides, my guides. I'm working with my guides. And I didn't understand that concept
What do you mean?
when I first started Reiki, but in our first level 1 and 2 class, my teacher played William Rand's meditation of finding your Reiki guides. And that's one of the meditations in his Reiki Touch kit, which is just a fantastic kit. If you still have a DVD player and a CD player, I've been talking to him about bringing that kit and making it did an ebook and MP3s and stuff. And it's definitely on his list, but he does have a very long list of things to do. And because it's just a fantastic meditation. And so I'm listening to that meditation. And in one part, you ask the name of your guide. So I see this little tiny light, and it's just a light. And that is actually how angels show up to me, as lights. I don't necessarily see the bodies each time. But I didn't know that. I was just brand new, and I'm just trying my best to follow the meditation and not screw it up. And you ask the name, and I heard Ariel, and I was like, oh man. And like you, I was actually raised Protestant, so we don't talk about angels very much. And the only angel I think we ever talk about is the one that was at Christ's birth. And so I didn't know anything else about anyone else. And I hear Ariel, and I went, oh man, probably everybody else got somebody cool, and I got the Little Mermaids. I really, literally, and I was even hesitant to share in the class but I did. I said, and I also had God. And so I thought, okay, at least God, and the light expanded and expanded until it got so large that I could see that it was God. And so I shared at the end. I didn't share God because I thought they're going to think I'm presumptuous if I say my guide is God, even though looking back, like I have tapped into, I had a relationship and a friendship with God since a little child, and I never let that go, fortunately. But I did share, I got Ariel, and I was very confused. And my teacher said, oh, Archangel Ariel, how lovely. And I went, Ariel's an angel. So I looked it up and realized that Archangel Ariel was all about animals and nature, which has been my entire existence, has been about animals and nature. And it made perfect sense.
Uriel's supposed to be about wisdom.
Oh,
sense of humor, though. Yeah.
Uriel, it is about wisdom and sense of humor. And that makes sense. For me, some people ask if you need a guide, and I don't think you do, Karen. Like, I think you can do Reiki without working with guides.
Oh, yeah.
What happened was, working with a guide, I'm not very good at abstract concepts. And so working with my guide, it gave me something real, a little more real to connect with, that looked like an angel, that looked like a person. My main guide right now is Jesus, and that gives me someone real to connect with and ask questions of, and that sort of thing, rather than just putting it out in the ether. I do still talk to God like I always have, but it is nice to have that intermediary as well, that guide to just have somebody a little more real to connect with. So you don't need a guide, but it can be useful. What's your
and sometimes guides come in, like Mother Mary comes in, not to every session,
right?
But with a couple of clients, I'll ask, I think one I did, I was like, are you Catholic? She said, yeah, why? I said, because I feel like Mother Mary's here for you. And Mother Mary, to me, seems like this beautiful, very loving similar to Kuan Yin, but different. And I think these are just energies. And these are just energies, guides that help bring a particular frequency or help you understand something or help lift something. Or I don't know, just be open. But you don't have to have Reiki guides or spirit guides. Or sometimes, and I wanted to say this, sometimes I think we are spiritual guides for each other.
That's
If
true.
you've ever, I don't know why I'm feeling emotional about this. If you've ever had a nudge to like go talk to that person or go do something, and it's just this, there's no logical reason for you to do it or to speak to that person or something. Just, I think birds come or insects appear, or I think that all of like animal totems appearing and giving you guidance, go this way, here, yes, here's your sign. Sometimes I think we act as each other's signs. You know, that if we're listening, if you are a Reiki practitioner and you're kind of plugged in a lot, you'll get like a nudge, like you need to smile at that. Sometimes I'm just walking and I get, smile at that kid.
Yeah.
And I just do it. And I know that you probably have been on the receiving end. Sometimes it just, somebody just walks up and says, you've got the prettiest eyes. And it's just what you needed to hear at that particular moment. So I think sometimes we are instruments, maybe not guides. We are instruments.
Yeah, I
each
think you're
other.
right. We're that element that brings in the coincidences that are
And
the
so when you're
messages.
listening and you're open to guidance, that then sometimes it's just a little part that you play, just 6 or 7 eagles flying by your house, Pam. They're like, I don't know why I feel like, hey, how you doing? I was like, I don't know. It's kind of got the urge to come over here. I don't know. But I feel like there's, oh wait, now I'm going to quote Hamlet. What does Hamlet say? There are more things on heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. So there's so much going on that we can't even understand. And we're all pieces and parts of it.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it, Karen. And I think that you touched on listening. And I know that in animal Reiki, that's a very big part of the course. It's just opening up that intuition, opening up that ability to listen. Because of course, as you're doing animal Reiki sessions, you have to be very vigilant. And you have to do them with your eyes open. You have to do them sometimes in noisy environments, but you have to do them in a way that keeps everybody safe. And that's really important. And people sometimes listening, people don't understand because they think it's hearing, but it's all of those senses that I described. When we can learn to listen with all the parts of our body and all the parts of our being, then we can access all of this extra information. There's a theory that animals have an 8th chakra. And we all know that animals can be very intuitive and very sensitive. There are dogs that can sniff out cancer and that are more accurate than some of the most advanced diagnostic equipment that we have. Animals always seem to know our mood. Animals know when we're coming home, even though it is impossible for them to know. They usually know 10 minutes or so before we're coming home. And this extends to animals in nature as well. Like there's a very strong awareness. And so you can really tap into that inner awareness. And I've been asked to find a better word than listening to describe it, because so many people feel that listening is just for sound, but honestly, I can't. I've tried perception and it's not the same. I've tried inner awareness. It's not the same, because there's an there's an active part of listening. And so if you can follow me on the word listening, if you can listen with every part of your being, and that's listening, that's like trying, like open to hear and actively working to hear, then you can tap into your guidance and what's right for you. And sometimes my guidance takes me places I don't really want to go. And I'm sure that when your guidance was saying Ecuador, you had a few moments when you were like, I don't know.
That's when you ask for clarification, then, and you'll get it.
Then
Like when I was supposed to go to Norway to study reconnective healing back in 20, when was that? I don't, 20, 2013, I think, or something, 2014 and 2014. And I remember telling my son, I had a feeling, I saw this and I went, reconnective healing. I looked it up and I thought there's no class except in in Norway that I could go to. So I went and told my son, I said, I think I'm supposed to go to Norway. He was playing a game. He's okay. And then there was a show that I was watching, and then it was guess where it was? It was Ecuador. We were driving in the car listening to classical music, and Edvard Grieg came on, and I said, Aiden, guess where this composer is from? He said, Norway. I said, yes. Yeah. And I just, everywhere I turned for 3 days, it was like Norway, because I was listening, but I was like, I'm supposed to go to Norway. I've never been to Norway. How am I going to go to Norway? Where am I going to get that money? And it just happened.
Yeah.
So
it shows up, and
just pay attention.
And that's
paying attention. Maybe that's it. It's not just listening. It's pay attention to
the guidance that's all around you. Yeah, that's right. It's about being able to pay attention, like listening for and paying attention. That's true. That's a good.
How much of my life did I live not paying attention? I was just, because when you're like focused on what you think you're supposed to be doing, and you're like, I'm going to do this, and you're like, this is how most people live their lives, me included, like this.
Going straight forward with,
I got to get a degree. I'm going to get a master's degree. I'm going to have a teaching career. I'm going to do this. And if you're not open, you're not going to get any guidance.
So it's listening. It's being open and listen. Yeah, totally. I love that. Karen, is there anything, there was something else I was going to mention about, but I can't think of it now. Oh, just, even for me, the guidance to do my Reiki masters, I had a million reasons in England with William Wren. I had a million reasons why I couldn't do that. One of the biggest ones was money, and the money just showed up. So if you can just listen and then say yes. I look back at the guidance to do the licensed teacher program, and one of my least favorite things in the world is paperwork. And Karen, you and I both know how much paperwork was involved in the licensed teacher program. It was enormous. And I, as a government employee for 12 years, thought I had done the equivalent of paperwork that I needed to do in my lifetime, aside from taxes.
Thank you. That's enough.
That was enough. And yet doing the licensed teacher program is one of the best things I ever did. And I know I'm hearing from a lot of people lately who are getting a nudge and listening to their guidance to maybe do the licensed teacher program or do these other things. And so just the option to, hopefully we've cleared up some of the ways that you can open yourself to listen to guidance.
And just expand, the very basics, like the 3 pillars, right? This just came to me. You ground and center, and then indication of the spirit. So when we're doing a session, we're asking, show me where this person needs Reiki, but you can do this in your life. You can ground and center.
You can do gasho.
And then you can say, show me.
And then bring your hands to your third eye and ask the Reiki to work with your intuition.
Show me. Show me where I'm supposed to go. Show me what I'm supposed to do. Just for a session, you can apply that to your entire life. And then when you get the, then do it. Yeah. That's kind of what I said in the blog. You have to ask, which was really hard for me. You ask, you listen, and then you have to act on what you, sometimes you may be like, over here. And there's
another caveat. You don't have to act on it. Sometimes you can hear the guidance and say no, or not right now.
That's a good
point. Used to argue with my guidance. I used to go into great detail about how I shouldn't and couldn't and wouldn't and all of this. But over time, I realized that my guidance always led me. The Reiki guidance always led me in the direction that was best for me. So even when the guidance, for instance, said I needed to join the licensed teacher program, and I didn't particularly want to at the time, I knew I was going to follow that guidance because it was leading me in a direction that was going to be beneficial to me.
And that's another clue about guidance, is if what you're doing is just like a struggle, you're over here like trying to open this door and it's not opening, then that's probably not your door.
Not your guidance.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing, Karen, I wanted to mention before we move into a meditation today, and that's just being aware of where the guidance comes from. You talked about our ancestors being around, and they can be around as guides. But one of the things I heard early on with Reiki is that they're not always the best source of guidance, because they're not.
No, because they're ego-based.
They may have great intentions. Yeah. They're not coming from a high enough plane of existence to really see the whole picture. They're usually rooting you on or egging you on, but they're also still usually working to heal their own egos, to learn, to grow themselves. So they don't have all the answers. And so I just wanted to talk about the importance of finding the guidance that is right for you, like tapping into that higher level guidance and making sure that you are actually working with a third heaven or higher vibration and frequency energy as your guide. And
I
there's
would say you can ask your ancestors for support, but you
Right.
better get your guidance from some higher plane.
Exactly. That's what I was shown early on. Yeah. And one of the things people ask is, who is my guide? And we're going to go into a little meditation to find out who your guide is. But here's something you should know. You probably already know your guide. And that is because you probably always had, maybe you were drawn to Ganesha or Buddha or Jesus,
Jesus.
or
When I was a
or
kid, I
Mother
thought
Mary.
Jesus had great big hands.
Right.
And I would imagine Jesus would hold me in these huge hands. So in my mind, Jesus had huge hands and Jesus would hold me in his hands. So yeah, I've always been drawn to Jesus.
Well,
Just his
exactly.
followers scare me.
There are different interpretations for sure.
Yeah. But where they're drawn, that's probably
Where you're drawn is probably who has been your guide all along. And you also need to know that you can also choose your guide. And so maybe if yours hasn't led you into the best of decisions in the past, maybe take that as a sign that perhaps your guide is not from the highest vibration, and you can let that guide go. We used to have a whole process of letting go of guides with Holy Fire Reiki when it first came in, so that you could work with the guide that was most appropriate for you at that time and at a high enough level. And sometimes our guides take us as far as they can, and then we change. I remember when I did study Holy Fire, I got very clear message that as much as I loved working with Archangel Michael, our work was done together, and he was handing me off to Jesus. And I remember being devastated by it. And I said, "Can I still talk to you?" And Archangel Michael said, "Of course." And I asked Jesus, and he said, "Of course, he's one of my friends." And but it was important for me to get over some of the hangups I had with working with Jesus, and realize that that he was the best guide for me at that time. And I actually never looked back from it. So it is possible to let go of a guide and for them to take you. And Archangel Michael said, "I've taken you as far as I can." And I didn't think you could get a better guide than Archangel Michael. But he said, "Now I'm passing you off," and that's okay too. And you can also, if there's someone you're drawn to, you can do some research and then ask them to be your guide. And you can use that distance symbol like Karen talked about, and you can send Reiki to your guide and really form a nice connection with them, especially do that for a couple of weeks for 10, 15 minutes a day. Send Reiki to your guide. And I know I asked God once, because William Rand had written an article about how you could send Reiki to God. And I said, "God, Reiki comes from you. Why would I send it back to you? Like, why would I send Reiki to you? Or why would I send Reiki to a Reiki guide, somebody who's coming from this high level of existence?" And God actually said, "Your Reiki students," that was back when we did attunements. And now with Holy Fire, the energy works with our students directly. But when we did attunements, the energy would come through us and then be transferred to them. And he said, "Your Reiki students received their Reiki energy from you, right?" And I said, "Yeah, their connection. And yet you love jumping on the table and getting a treatment from them." And I said, "Yeah." And God said, "It's like that. Like, we enjoy the connection, and we enjoy you sending this love, this divine love energy to us." So that's something we can do too.
That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And Karen, what else is there anything we missed talking about guidance today?
No, I think I'm sure when you post this on YouTube, people can post questions in the comments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy to, and we will be happy
Or reach out
to
an
either one of
email
us.
if you have a question, and we'd be happy to answer our 2 cents, what we think.
Yeah. Guys, we're going to just wrap up our episode with a brief meditation now to just help you open to your guidance and discernment and trust yourself and to figure out who your guides are. And so I'm just going to invite you once more to close your eyes. Just briefly bringing your hands into Gasho, just reconnecting with the Reiki energy. And then placing them comfortably on your body wherever you feel guided. And breathe. And we just invite the Reiki energy today to bring all of the disparate parts of ourselves into alignment with each other so that we can listen with one effort, with every part of our being, and with every part of our being having an equal voice. And if we have learned to distrust our intuition and our guidance, our way of receiving energy for any reason in any way, we just let that go today. Just reconnecting with our intuition, with every part of our being. And I invite you to imagine that it's a beautiful, warm, sunny day and that you are walking through a trail in a beautiful forest. And as you walk along and as you breathe into yourself, you breathe in the life energy of the forest. And you come to the edge of the forest, and in front of you is a beautiful river. It's the river of life. And there's a bridge crossing the river, so you decide to cross the bridge and you begin walking along a trail beside the river of life. It's filled with beautiful flowers, and you're approaching this lovely tree. It's enormous, with its branches reaching to the sky and then curling back to the earth again, symbolizing a great circle of life. And partway to the tree, you see a bench. And you decide to sit on this bench, and you look over to the tree of life, and from under the great canopy, someone starts to walk toward you. This is your Reiki guide, and some of you listening may already know your guide and may be so excited to see them, but for some of you, this may be new. So I invite you to notice what they're wearing. What kind of shoes do they have on? What do they look like? You notice that they're smiling at you. And there's a recognition. And there's an understanding that our guides lead us even when we're unaware that they do. They help us in our moments of despair when we are open. So I invite you to open your heart now, and your mind, and every part of your being, as the guide comes over and sits on the bench with you and takes your hands. And if you're not sure who this guide is, you can ask them their name. And you can let them know that you're so happy that this third heaven being is in your life. You might want to ask them about some of the guidance they have given you in the past, some of the times in your life when they stepped in and they helped you. ahead and ask them any questions that you have, or just sit enjoying the Reiki energy with them. And one of the things that, if you wish, you can invite them to do is the following. One of the things I've asked my guides to do is please help me and guide me, even and especially when I forget to ask. And we'll just remain here for some time. As all of your blocks and barriers to receiving guidance from this enlightened being is released. And if you have received guidance from lower level beings in the past, those are released from you now. Feel the Reiki energy surrounding you. You take a moment now to thank your guide or your guides for everything that they have done for you and continue doing, and just make a decision that you will check in with them more frequently, knowing that they are always there, that you are never a bother to them. They are always available to you. They are omnipresent, able to be many places at once. If it feels right to you, you may choose to embrace your guide. You thank them once more, and just once again, you may invite them to guide you and heal you, even and especially when you forget to ask. And whenever you feel ready and guided to do, go ahead and take a deep breath and come back into the room. Karen, I want to thank you for being here with us today, talking about guidance.
Always a pleasure.
And I just want to thank all of the listeners. Do let us know if you have any questions, just even in the YouTube chat, or you can reach out to either of us. Our contact information is there. And I hope that you enjoy following your guidance and just listening with every part of yourself. Namaste.